I'm Jason Fry with the Texas Knifemakers Guild. We're a 501c3 nonprofit here in the state of Texas dedicated to knife making education. We do events all around the state. We call them hammer-ins or grind-ins or shop tours, but really it's just an opportunity to bring people together to make knives. That's what we love, that's what we like to share. Today we're working on a knife making workshop. We did it last year and this is our second year to do this, where we bring in 12 or 15 knife makers, qualified, skilled guys, and we bring in 30 brand new guys that have never made a knife before. We're doing this through a partnership with a local university. They're providing the facility for us. We're providing the labor and the skill. Last year we made 43 knives in 3 days. I don't know that that had ever been done before. We take a person through the process of making a knife from bar stock. So you start with the bar of steel and you grind it and then you harden it and then you polish it and you put handles on and they leave with a knife before they're done. That's our goal for these long workshops, is for each participant to make a knife during the process of the workshop. We built this organization from scratch about 2 years ago because we value the craft of knife making. We want to share it with people. There's value in making something from nothing. There's value in I made this myself instead of I bought this at Walmart and it's a piece of junk from China. And that value is what brings us together.
Name's Tobin Neito, Stonehaven Knife Works. I've been forging and making knives for 15 years and I've loved knives all my life.
Do you remember your first experience with a knife growing up? What kind of knife you got and what you did with that knife?
Well, the first knife I do remember was one of those little old-timer trapper knives, 2 little blades that my grandfather gave me. And I carried it around. I still have it, actually. So I carried it around probably from the time I was 7 years old until I was 12, and then I started getting bigger blades. And then, of course, you know, like people my age, you see Rambo, and then you want a big survival knife and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so that's what happened. That's kind of what started the love affair with big knives, was seeing Rambo and then realizing that knife isn't that big. Whenever you gain a certain knowledge, I think that in one form or another may be either lost to time or is starting to kind of lose appeal, you have a responsibility to teach people that want to learn. And so when it comes to the classes that I do, because I'm a guild volunteer, I volunteer for the Knifemakers Guild, and I've been teaching even since before the guild began. And the interesting thing is the diversity of people that want to learn just basically how to work with their hands, and the thing that they gravitate towards is that man's first tool may have been a hammer, but definitely the second tool was a knife. And so I wanted to share it with people that are willing to put in the effort to do it, because knife making takes a lot of effort. It's not one of those things you kind of just decide, oh, I'm gonna go and make a knife. And you know, there are certain videos out there and everything that show that you can make a knife in a weekend. But if you really want to be committed to it, if you want to take the time and dedication to forge specifically, that takes, you know, that takes an insane amount of effort. And I just like being surrounded by those people that want to learn. And so it's that thing of the teacher enjoys the student. That's what makes it fun.
Do you remember the first knife you had growing up? Your first experience with a knife, and
Yes.
what you did? Can you tell us a little bit about the knife? And
I can tell you what I remember. I was 5 years old. We took a vacation to Arkansas, Black Hills Diamond Mine, which is an area, it's a graded area. You go out there and dig for diamonds, wash them off, and you might get lucky and get one, you might not. But my dad bought me a little pocket folder from that souvenir shop that was there. And I remember having that thing forever. Then it broke, it blade bent backwards one day, and asked my dad how to fix it. And I just remember taking a little hammer and trying to make the blade work again and try to fix the pin, 5 and 6 years old. And so that's my earliest memory of a knife. I've got other memories of knives, but that's my earliest, and that's the one that sticks with me the most because it was my very first that my dad trusted me with. And it was red, had a red plastic handle. It said, Arkansas Black Hills Diamond Mine on it, kind of etched in white. It was nice. It was my first one. I was real proud of it, and the fact that my dad trusted me with a knife at 5 years old, then it's kind of like a rite of passage in a way when you got your first knife. So that sticks with me forever. So right now we have about a little over 150 members. All Texas-based except for a handful of them. They're outside of Texas that actually contribute to Texas knife making. That's one of the stipulations for being an out-of-state member. But our main goal is to educate people on knives, knife making, keep the craft going. We host hammer-ins in events like we're at today. Ag teachers, we're teaching ag teachers how to make knives so they can take that craft back to their students. 15 or 20 knife makers teaching about 35 or 40 students how to make a knife in 3 days. But that's what the Guild is about, is education.
your first knife you had, what's your first experience with a knife growing up?
First knife I had was an old Schrade, stacked leather handle that was kind of like your old school survival knife. My grandfather gave it to me, and I carried that thing forever. And I'd say I was probably about 7 years old when he gave it to me, and running around playing in the creeks and stuff around the house and all. I ended up losing it in the creek and searched for that thing for like 2 years and finally found it. The creek finally got low enough and it was still sitting there in the mud. Handles had rotted off of it. I've still got it today. It's at my shop, and I look at it all the time. So I've always been kind of connected with knives, hunting and everything, fishing and everything growing up. And I don't know, they've always just been there. Everyone in my family, you know, carried a knife. My dad was a cowboy, and my grandfather used his knives in the garden and all that stuff all the time. So I don't know, I've always just been around them. The very first knife I built, I was 10 years old. Built it for my dad for Father's Day. It was made out of a piece of banding strap off a pallet. It was kind of a spring steel. And I shaped it on a hard stone bench grinder, roughest thing you've probably ever seen in your life. I used 2x4s for the scales and 16 penny nails, and heated them up and pinned them together to hold the scales on. My dad still has it. It's in the shop. It was basically just a small, probably 3-inch blade. Has I guess a mock faux gut hook thing, whatever I guess a 10-year-old kid can pull out. But there was about a 30-year span between that and what I'm doing now. So something that I try to keep in mind when building knives today is just is function first, and you know, you can add your artwork and stuff in later. But what drew me to knives, I guess, would be mostly just the uniqueness of them. I think there's two things that will instantaneously make you a better knife maker, and one of those is going to shows where you're, you know, being able to handle and see in person custom knives of all quality, and walking into another maker's shop. two of the things I've seen that has literally changed the game for me. Just seeing what other people are working with, how they're working with it, absolutely has changed everything.
My name is Jeb McGuinn. I'm 69 years old. I've been making knives. I made my first knife probably in the early 70s. I got interested in it a little bit at that time, but at that time, you know, there was no internet. There was nobody. I didn't know another single knife maker. There were some knife makers out there, but it was kind of a secret organization. You know, they didn't share the information like we do, and there was no internet or anything, so it was hard. You can go down to your local Walmart and buy a decent knife, you know, for probably less than $50. You can buy a decent knife and it'll do everything you want to. Nobody really needs a custom knife. You don't. I mean, it's just like people don't need a $3,000 wristwatch when the Timex will keep perfect time. But once you get involved in it and you understand it and you're able to distinguish, you know, what the difference is between a $50 knife and a $500 knife, it gets really interesting. Some people collect guns, cars, jewelry, oil paintings, whatever. There's a lot of people in this world that can really appreciate the fine handwork that goes into a custom knife. You know, you've got a connection to it, and it's something that you yourself have either had a hand in choosing the knife or possibly even making it, or at least maybe giving instructions to a knife maker as to what you want. You know, that's what really makes it a custom knife.
For me, organizations like the Knifemakers Guild, I'm not a formal member, but what they do is important, and the fact that they're willing to share information, and that's the interesting thing about knife makers. Whether they be in the guild, whether they be in the American Bladesmith Society, whether, you know, it's just a guy who's been doing this for a long time, they're willing to share all of that information. So if you see a post about, you know, blacksmith tools and you want to get into it, you know, go for it. There's nothing wrong with trying, and if you enjoy it, that's one of the things. Once you get bit by that knife making bug, it usually sticks with you for a long time. And so that's the important thing about all the different guilds, all the different societies that are out there for knife makers. They have this information. They want to share the information. And after going to Blade Show this year and seeing the amount of kids that are coming in and showing the blades that they've made, you know, I think knife making in general for generations to come is secure.